What's up, ladies and gentlemen? I am here to present to you another video. For those of you who have been following along, I have been working 6 to 7 days a week at 10 to 12 hours a day, did my day job selling Christmas trees to Christians, which, of course, I'm well aware of the irony, and I've probably said that a dozen times. And that's because I've pre-recorded all these videos back to back, so it's kind of becoming monotonous and funny at the same time. So for those of you who've been watching my videos since November, I thank you guys, and I've probably got a few more coming, or this might be the last one I'm uploading. I'll never know because I'm going to upload them at random, basically, whenever I feel like it would be suitable. So anyway, for those of you who are looking to hire me for magical services or for consults, I'm not going to be available again until January. So if you do hire me or want to book me, you can do so, but we're going to have to schedule something for January. So if your magical need is urgent, please understand that you're going to have to go to somebody else. I highly recommend S. Ben Kane, who's part of From the Ashes Publishing, and Carrie Darkstar. You can find them both under the Magical Services page of From the Ashes. Okay. All of that being said, for the fifth or sixth time in the last hour, a friend of mine who's been a friend and follower of my work since I started back in, or pretty close to it, back in November or so of 2018, September perhaps, a gentleman named Aaron. He and I have had some interesting conversations over the time. He's always been very respectful, and we get along pretty good, even when we disagree. He asked me a question that I think is actually a really good one, which is, what are some tips and tricks for writing your own grimoire of Book or Shadows? And there's a lot of videos all over YouTube about this, but I think it's a pretty well, searched for term. So I think it's going to be a good idea for me to add a video for it, even if I don't have anything too specifically amazing to add to it. First and foremost, I'm lazy, okay? And that means I have a hard time dedicating myself to filling out a grimoire from front to back. I take lots of notes, keep them on the computer, and things like that. However, a grimoire, a Book of Shadows, is not just a collection of data. This is something you have to have set in your mind when you first start out. If you're just looking for a way to record data, whatever way you want to do it is fine. Keep it on a computer, print it out, use a spiral notebook, whatever. A grimoire, however, a Book of Shadows, is a magical tool. Even if you never open it and use it in a ritual, having it present in your magical space, laying it down in your altar, imbibing it with energy, or not imbibing it, but infusing it with energy, referring to it in the ritual, recording your rituals in it and reciting from it. I have a mentality where I believe that the best rituals are done from memory and free form, as a matter of fact. So that means instead of trying to ritualistically follow the right wording, the poetry every time, you intuitively recite what you think is necessary. The other side of that coin is anything that you put in a grimoire is just as good as something you do intuitively. So what do I mean by that? If you were to write out a spell, for example, you take my book, Become the Maelstrom, and you hold that book in magical ritual and you read out of that book. Acceptable. Probably not the best. It's better if you read my ritual, memorize it as best you can, and then recite something as close to what I had written as possible. On the other hand, if you write it in your own grimoire, when you're doing this, you are doing an act of creation. You're doing an act of taking something out of the astral, passing it through your mental filter, through your biological filter, and imprinting it on paper. And this act is far more magical, far more important, far more useful, far more effective, far more energetic, far more holistic in the mind, body, spirit sense than typing it onto a computer. Because when you're typing it onto a computer, yes, you're creating it in a similar sense, but it doesn't have a physicality to it. The physicality is much less real, okay? It's more abstract. It's still potential. There's still a potential for it to work. It's not saying it won't, because certain symbols have a power all their own. But when you write the symbol, it's always more powerful. Like when you take a rune, right, and you make your own runes. A lot of people prefer to do that for a reason. You don't have to. It can still work if you buy them pre-made. But if you do that, you should still do something to make them yours. You should blood them. You should ink them. You should do something. You chant over them, whatever it takes. You should make it yours. Well, a grimoire is way more powerful because of this. You are writing it by hand yourself, mistakes and all. Very, very important. So for that purpose, I think a grimoire, personally, should be something more than just a notebook. I would go to a bookstore like I don't want to name any because then who knows, they might get mad. But go to your local big box bookstore. Some of them have leather-bound journals and things of that nature. You can also find them online. You can find lots of really fancy ones. I don't like to spend too much because I figure there's a good chance I'm going to tear pages out or do mistakes or whatever at some point. And I feel bad if I'm destroying a $100 book. You know, it just makes me feel bad. But $30, $40, $50 for a grimoire, while it might be a lot for some people, I think is pretty reasonable. And a grimoire should be special. I personally think that you should have more than one as well. You can have a big grimoire that is your central grimoire. That's fine. But I think it also helps sometimes to have grimoire for certain purposes. So, for example, I have this grimoire right here. This one I bought from a local big box bookstore, okay? And it's the prettier one of the two that I have. I have one that's just a leather-bound journal. It's nice as well. It's bigger. It's much sloppier because I just kind of put anything that comes to mind in there. But this one is more focused, okay? This is my favorite right now. This is what I'm working out of the most. And it is my grimoire for working with runes, Norse magic, and anything else that I feel is part of that shamanic, naturalistic current or anything else. And it's just a basic, journal, and however you want it to be is, you can have lined or unlined. This one is lined, and it's, I don't want to show you too much, but it's, I have written in it. Now, you can write it any way that you want. Okay, you can follow whatever format you want so long as you can access it very easily. I find, of course, if it's got a built-in bookmark, like it's got this little leather tab, that's really useful. But the first thing I would always do in a grimoire is you need to do a dedication and perhaps a page one spell, if you will. I don't know what you'd call it necessarily. There's probably a word for it in some other tradition. In my Shadownomicon, I give you guys, it's meant for the Shadow current, but honestly you can use it in any current or a variation of it, and you can just change the wording a little bit. You write into this grimoire basically a curse, basically a dedication, basically an intention. I dedicate this grimoire to the Shadow Current. It is my will and intention that this book become a sacred artifact and centerpiece of my dark magical art. As my power grows, so too will the power of this black book of dark secrets. I hereby declare that anyone who obtains this book and or reads the pages within and does not first get my permission or soon after obtain my explicit forgiveness will become the target of the following corruption and curse. May you forever be ignorant of your own shadow. May it corrupt you in the light of day, may it and torment you in the dark of night. May the legions of the abyss drain you of your will to live, and may your final moments in this world be of breathless horror, as the shadow of your own making sits upon your chest as you sleep and feeds you your last terrible nightmare and inhales your final pitiful scream. Of course, that's signed and then given a blood offering. Now, I give you guys permission to know what's in this book. Don't worry, you're fine. You're not actually holding the book. You're not going into pages I don't want you to see, so you're fine. And then I essentially continue from there. My usual advice is that you create a table of contents somewhere on the first pages, and you leave it blank. You leave a table of contents, you put a section, and as you write it, you fill it in, okay? And you might want to number all the pages ahead of time, or you might want to number them as you go. So long as you number them, give yourself a way to search through the book. This helps you. So this particular one I'm doing a little differently because it's really focused on a certain specific thing, so it's a little different. But I would write a table of contents with your title of the section or the page. So you might want to put like, a spell to, give somebody warts. So it's just a joke, but you get the point. Page 42, okay. Then you go on page 42, that's where it should be. You create your knowledge that is known from left to right, okay? So that means you should try to follow a certain pattern. And then you put your notes from right to left. So what do I mean by that? Well, in this book, you'll see here I have my Norse runes section. And some people say I have a really neat grimoire, and that's cool. I'm an artist. My handwriting generally sucks. I have to go so slow to get it to look this neat. But you can be as neat or as sloppy as you want. And I try to make it an inspiring work. It's a work of art to me. It is an artifact. This is a thing that when I use in magical ritual, I don't want to be like, what does that say? I want to be able to be like, this is my fucking book of shadows. Bang, put it down and hear the thunderclap when it hits the floor. You know what I mean? And you'll see I have. On this one, I've organized it a little differently since it's based on rune magic, this particular book. You'll see I have all the runes, and then I've started, I don't know if you can see that, R1, that means it's the first rune that I'm writing about. Even though it's not in order, I have them in order in their layout, as you can see here. That's the correct order of the Elder Futhark. And then I have the explanations for each one on a page that is actually based upon when I actually encountered the rune in my practice of acquiring them one by one. Then at the back of the book, well, I should say, I'll fill that all out, going from left to right, until I've mastered everything, until I've written down everything of consequence that is something that is factual. So, for example, I'll find it in another grimoire, I'll learn it from somebody else, I will invent it, however you want to put it, and that'll go left to right. That's going to be the spells, the rituals, and everything that's confirmed and solid. It shouldn't be just notes. It shouldn't just be your chicken scratch that you think is important. This should be the confirmed. That's the meat. That is the soul of the book is left to right. Okay, and you can fill both sides of the pages, but you start and you work from left to right. Your notes and the things that are more, we'll say, not set in stone, should begin on the right side, and you should work your way back. Okay, that can be a little confusing for people at first, but when you get used to it, it's almost like the Japanese way of reading a comic book. You know, like reading manga. You don't write backwards or anything like that. You still write however is comfortable for you, but you start on the last page and you work your way forward. When your journal is full, when your grimoire is full, there will be no more empty pages. And here's the metaphor. Here's the analogy. Think of it this way. The left hand is your knowledge that you're receiving and adding to the pages on the left. Your right hand is what you're doing with that knowledge and then reporting it on the right. And your hands are like this, and they eventually come together, and when they come together, you're done. That grimoire is finished, and it's up to you what to do with it. Sometimes you burn it. I know, crazy. I personally wouldn't, but some people might want to. Now, this is actually something that not many people do, and I'm probably one of the few people to tell you that that's sometimes a good option. I kind of feel like a grimoire is something that can be a good thing and a bad thing. A grimoire can become a valuable tool and a magical artifact and be used in ritual. There are many times I've used it not even to recite out of it, just have it present and put my hand on it and pull energy in and out of it. Because you're putting energy into it while you're working with it, and I'll get into that in a moment. But it's not a thing that should ever limit you. And when you create a grimoire, it can create a very limiting effect. Because over time, this becomes a rut that you've walked in over and over. It's the same path you've walked over and over till it becomes a rut, and you can get stuck. So at some point, it can become necessary to somehow break free of that rut, and sometimes that requires destruction and also making an offering. When I was younger, I had several grimoires that were admittedly in spiral ring notebooks, but they were still special to me, and I made them as offerings to certain entities when I burned them. I had filled them up, I had thought that I had gotten everything I wanted out of them, and I gave them to specific entities as an offering. I said, thank you for teaching me this, here you go, and I burned it for them. That's pretty powerful. Okay, some people are cringing right now. That's really powerful. If you ever do that for the right entity, okay, that's really powerful. Another thing you can do, of course, with the grimoire is share it with people. You can give it to someone when you're done. But I don't think that a grimoire is necessarily something that should be shared too much. I think that a grimoire is meant to be personal. It's meant to be private and only shared within certain small groups, if shared at all. You know, something you pass down to your children, for example, or pass to your friends. But generally speaking, if you're doing it right, you're putting a lot of personal information potentially in there as well. You know, some of it you might have no problem sharing. I'm kind of an open person. My secrets guard themselves. If I don't want you to know something, I don't write it down. I don't make a paper trail. But some people do. Some people treat these as a journal, and they write in them everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. They don't want to share that. But this is also your personal energy. So there is a very valid concern, because I hear some people screaming it right now, that kind of like giving someone an offering of blood and letting them use that to use baneful magic on you, your grimoire represents a very, very personal thing. So if you give it to someone you don't trust, they could use this to destroy you. Okay. Personally, I believe that. They just have access to all your secrets, if nothing else, all of your methods. So consider that it's something you may need to destroy. at some point. Never be so attached to your grimoire that you can't burn it if you have to. In fact, look at it as an opportunity to make another one. I see them as a work of art, a very strong work of art. They're an artifact of magic, and they're very useful for that sense. Now, when I am writing in my grimoire, because we're human beings, and because our hands get tired and everything else like that, it can be really difficult to charge them as we work the way that I usually try. When I begin writing in my grimoire, I usually, not always, but I usually light a candle. And I get into a mental state where I'm focused on what I'm writing into it. And at least at first, usually it fades because you just kind of get into the process of writing and copying, because a lot of times I'm copying out of notes or another book. But at some point in the beginning, you should be of the mind that you are not just writing letters, writing characters on a page, that you are burning and inscribing and carving and imprinting energy and forces onto the page. And if that fades by the time you're done, it's understandable. If you're like me, writing by hand is tedious because I have carpal tunnel and it can be hard for me to hold the pen for long in a comfortable way. I have to go slow because my handwriting is so bad. I have a doctor's handwriting, so for me to do what you see here, that's like I spent hours drawing pictures basically, because my brain I type too fast, if that makes sense. I type 140 words a minute when I get going. I write like that, and when I write like that, it's just chicken scratch. I can't slow down and write. So I have to slow down to the point where it's almost agony. It can take me to write one page a lot longer than it should. Not like an hour or anything, but what I have written on one page in my grimoire is about maybe a minute typed, not even. What I have written here might take me 20 minutes, may take me 10 minutes per page to do it right, because I try to make it pretty. But that might not be you. I only think it's necessary because I feel like I'm importing more energy into it and making it more special when I do it that way. If I'm just scribbling in my notes, okay, that's a different story. But if I'm writing in my grimoire is meant to have a soul. It's meant to have energy in it. It's meant to be special and important. And the more I charge it with my intent and the more special I make it while I work on it, the better. Now, one of the things I would do when you first get a grimoire, if you really want to get it started, besides doing that dedication in the beginning, I'd highly recommend that you do a little ritual around it. Okay, you can make it however you want. You might make it something as simple as just simply fumigating it with incense and maybe calling upon some spirits to help you. You may want to do a full ritual and really charge it and consecrate it to a spirit. You might want to give it as a gift to the spirit so that they help you write in it. Dan Talion, for example, as Goetic entities go, he's like a book where he loves books. In fact, he's pictured with a huge grimoire in his hand. And he loves to collect knowledge and books and things like that. That's something that most people don't maybe know about him. But if you dedicate a grimoire to him, he'll definitely bless that grimoire with special knowledge. Dan Talion's an amazing Goetic spirit, by the way. I haven't worked with him in a little while. I need to go back to him. It's been a little bit. So how big should it be? Anything else? Is there anything else like that I should talk about? No, whatever size you think is right. I'd avoid the little teeny ones. I think this is like a really good size because it's not too big. And you can have a couple of them and you can fill it with a subject instead of trying to cram it all into one book and get lost. Get yourself 3 or 4 of these. I'm probably going to buy a couple more just like it, maybe different colors, different themes, things like that, and different studies of magic go into them. This one's dedicated to runes, rune magic, Norse mythology, things like that. That's where it's all going to go in here as a focus. Maybe some other things too, spells that are related to that. And there's I don't know, maybe like 100 pages or so. It's a pretty decent sized book. And that's a perfect size for each subject of magic. You could do one of these and this is the Goetia, and this one is your, I don't know, whatever other system you want to use. Well, anyway, guys, that should probably do it. There's probably some other things I could say about it. One thing you might want to keep in mind is magical writing systems. And this is something that can be very tedious, but also make your book really special, is if you refer back to Become the Maelstrom, link in the description, of course. There's a section about creating your own magical alphabet, your own magical writing system. And I think that there is a lot of value in that. It's not something you want to do all the time. But if there's things you want to put in secret code, like for example, maybe you got some nosy friends in your family or whatever that maybe go into your ritual chamber and they might look at your grimoires or something. Maybe you got a nosy stepbrother or something. And you don't want them to get slammed by the curse maybe that you placed on it. Or maybe you want to put the curse in that writing so nobody knows what they're looking at. You can use magical sigil script, as I call it, to essentially disguise things, but they also have added power. If you refer back, it's probably one of my first videos on this channel. I mean, I had older videos that I deleted, but it's one of the first videos that I made public on this channel about magic, and it's magical writing. And if you refer back to that video and the section in Become the Maelstrom, that book about magical writing, and apply those principles to your grimoire, you can have some amazing results. You can write your titles, for example, in sigil script. You can put special things in there. It's a very useful, and it's a way to kind of empower your book with mystery and with power, believe it or not. But that's up to you. I don't always do that. It's something that I've worked with, and sometimes I'm too lazy to do, and sometimes I can't wait to write something in sigil script in my book because it looks badass. It looks cool. But you could use runes. You don't have to use. You could write everything in runes if you wanted to. That's pretty effective too. Most people wouldn't know how to read that. Maybe another mage might. Maybe I would. But I definitely probably would at some point. But your little brother or something wouldn't know what the heck to make of that. So you could write everything in runes if you know how to understand runes. In fact, that's a wonderful way to do things. So that's another thing to consider, is to use a secret language or something to help embellish. I would say as an embellishment, it's best. I wouldn't make the whole grimoire that way unless you're fluent in whatever it is. If you're fluent in Norse runes, if you're fluent in your own sigil script, if you can read it like you can read any alphabet, then that's different. Go ahead if that's what you want to do. It may be more tedious, it may not be. But I would use it as embellishment. I would use it as art. And, that's another thing, that's the last thing I'll say is, when it comes to neatness, again, I like to be as neat as possible. But if you make mistakes, it shouldn't be the end of the world. You haven't ruined your book because you had to scratch a word out. Don't worry about using whiteout. And if you find a page that's completely wrong, just carefully cut it out or, ignore it. Like dog ear it and never refer to it again. Fold it in half. And in fact, there's a lot of old journals you'll see that with. Writers might have dog-eared or taken a page and folded it completely in half because it's not meant to get in the way, or it's got something that maybe they decided wasn't valid, or maybe it's just something they don't want people to notice or something. I don't know. There's a lot of reasons why they might fold something into it. So that's a possibility as well. You can always take a page you don't like and just fold it in one time, and then you can tape it down or something so that that page is worthless. This way you don't ruin the look of the whole book, or you don't rip things apart. I would never rip a page out of a grimoire. That's like the worst thing to do. Just cut it out. Just carefully cut it out or fold it in. I think folding in looks a little nicer just because it's less, even though it's still like obvious there's something there, it's different. Like, it doesn't look as good when you look in a book and it's got like a missing page. You can tell. So anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And remember, there's no wrong way to do your own grimoire, honestly. This is just my personal opinions on it. Do it however you want. But I don't think many people talk about that left to right thing. So keep that in mind. I think that's a very useful way to organize it, because one of the worst things about a grimoire is organization. Where is everything in there? I hate going, where is this on page 4? Where's my primary invocation? Oh, where's this? It's such a tedious way to do things. So try to keep things organized as best you can, and you'll do better. Anyway, guys, DH Thorne signing off. Show me your support by making sure to like and comment on this video. Subscribe and hit the bell for updates, and then, if you wish, share this video responsibly. If you want to support me further, or want to know more about my practice, or learn to master your own, consider purchasing my high-quality book, Become the Maelstrom. The link is in the description. If you need my help or want to book my professional services, you can contact me directly on Facebook, or go to FromTheAshesPublishing.com and look for my list of services under Magical Services. If you do not see a specific service or ritual that addresses your concern, contact me and I can tailor-make a custom ritual working just for you. The link for all this are in the description. Thank you, and mind the shadows.